beating up your expensive sunglasses on or off the job. Frontline Optics is a sunglasses brand based out of San Diego, designed for first responders. If you're like me, you're constantly breaking and scratching your expensive designer sunglasses at work. Frontline Optics offers a no-questions-asked replacement program to cover your lost or damaged sunglasses. When the time comes to get yours replaced, all you need to do is cover a $12 service fee, and they'll ship a brand new pair to your door. No questions asked. Additionally, a portion of all sales is donated to the First Responders Children's Foundation. Frontline's shades are polarized, and they offer free shipping and returns, so you can try them out risk-free. Check them out at frontlineoptics.com or on Instagram at frontlineoptics. While you're there, use discount code THESIZEUP for 15% off. That's code THESIZEUP, one word, for 15% off. Frontline Optics, sunglasses designed with the front line in mind. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to The Size Up by National Fire Radio, because what you do off the job matters. I'm Pip, in case you didn't know, because, maybe this is your first time ever listening. But if it is your first time listening, this is episode 66. Well, it may actually not be, because this episode is going to drop after FDIC. No, this is going to be 66, because there's no way we'll be able to edit what we get at FDIC in the amount of time before this one's dropped. So this will be 66 for sure, probably with a follow-up of FDIC, unless Sebi does some amazing work, which he does do all the time, Sebi, and I got you in on another episode, but that'll be really hard. So episode 66, I'm super stoked. It is Eclipse Day too, so April the 8th, so the 4/8, the crazy eclipse is going to be happening later today, so the light won't be messed up from my house from, oh my God, the sun is blocked for a few minutes. It's also Rex Manning Day. My guest had no idea what that means because she's a little too young, which is okay, and I told her how to go find it out. If you don't know, kids, go watch the movie Empire Records. It's totally worth the watch. Cult classic of mine and a lot of other people. But it's cool because one of the things I like about my guest today is she reached out to me. And look, it's a little weird. I don't want to say it's weird, right? But like when people are like, hey, could I be on your podcast? But it's weird to me to ask someone to be on a podcast unless I have something kind of to promote or something I want to talk about. I just find it a little different, but I liked it that she did reach out to me, and I want more people to reach out to me because this is how you meet new people. And my guest today has heard some of the other episodes and heard one of my more recent episodes with Anna, which is probably like 59 or something like that, 60 if you're looking, which is a great episode. And she decided to just basically use her life motto of what the heck and totally cold message me, because it's not a cold call because she didn't call me on the phone, cold message me, slide into my DMs like the kids say, right? And here we are podcasting. So Hannah, what is up today? How are you?
I am doing good. First of all, thank you for having me on and just not being like, oh, this girl is so weird. Like, what is she doing? Reaching out to me, like, just like you said, cold call. But I'm really excited to be here. So I appreciate you bringing me on this Apocalypse Day. So
Apocalypse. Ooh, I haven't heard that one yet.
I can't take credit for that one. Some of the guys at my new job kept saying it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just borrow this for a little bit.
Is that why you're not where you're supposed to be today? Because it's Apocalypse Day? Or I don't know how much we could talk about what you're doing in life, but is that why you're off today? Because it's the apocalypse?
They're like, we're not having any of you drive into class today because we're literally blocking off major roads because of the people that are just going to stop in the middle of the street.
Now, so here in New Jersey, we are only going to get a partial eclipse where I am. And there are loads of people driving to different places. But where you are located in Indiana, correct?
Yes,
You're in full, 100% blockage, right?
Yep, I'm in Indianapolis today, so it is full on darkness heading our way.
For 20 minutes, right? Or something like that? Or is it a while?
Something wild like that. It's going to be wild either way.
Yeah, I haven't been able to keep up with exactly what's happening on it because whatever. But it's happening at 3:25. My kids and I will look up with sunglasses on for all the people that are going to yell at me that I let my kids look at an eclipse without glasses or anything like that. But yeah, I'm not really following much along because we're not closing roads or there's a lot of schools getting out early so kids can see it, I think is what the key is. But that's about where I'm at with 4-8 in the eclipse.
Yeah, well, we've got that today. Like, Indiana's just hopping today. Like, we've got the eclipse. Purdue's playing in the championship game tonight. Like, boiler up. Like, it's like full on party central in the middle of the Midwest. So, who said there's more than one in Indiana?
I don't think I've ever heard that statement made out there. Indiana is hopping today. Like, that's, you guys are live in Indiana. Like, and I mean, now it'll be over with, but, we'll be out there next week at FDIC. So myself and the National Fire Radio crew, I can't tell you where to find us because it'll be over with by the time you listen to this, but we will be out there, and we will have stories and things like that, because it's always an adventure when thousands of firefighters invade this poor city. The first time that, and being you're from there, you can kind of understand it. Like, the first time I went, I was so excited, and the second time I went, I was so excited, and by the third time, I was like, these poor people in this city are stuck with all these firefighters, right?
Oh yeah, like my sister, she works downtown, and she's like, I always know when FDIC is around because there are big mustachioed men. Easy. Just wandering around Indianapolis on Meridian Street, which anybody who's from here knows you do not wander Meridian Street, and there's just a bunch of firefighters just yeeting themselves out there. And she's like, it's super funny every year because, again, grew up around it. So it's one of those
tell
things.
Her if she sees a short mustachioed man, that would be me who interviewed you on the podcast. So then she could say, hey, what's up, man, his sister, to the short. I'm the shortest mustachioed man there almost every year. And to big shout out, wearing my original Mustache Club shirt. Former guest Brett threw me this shirt, so while I got the mustache, I may as well represent it.
Absolutely.
But before we could probably talk about it, and two, I got one more FDIC fact before we get into you. I did learn one year that I was out there that FDIC is like one of the biggest conventions to show up in Indy. But I also heard that one of the other large ones is like a large truck or like wrecker type convention, like for like long haul truck drivers and wreckers and things that happens at the Indiana Convention Center. So
that doesn't surprise me. We find
again, it could be a total lie.
Ourselves.
I didn't Google it, but a man told me that there, and I'm like, all right, I believe you. Like, why not? Like,
it's like, why not? Sure.
And it was funny. My wife went there for a PA convention last year or the year before, and she's like, well, you've been there so many times. Where do I want to go? And I'm like, none of the places I go to. So just move on and find your own spot. Use Yelp, and they'll take you to nice places probably, because most of the places I end up in, your feet are stuck to the floor when you walk in. So. Oh, yeah. But anyway, Hannah, so you reached out to me, and basically in your initial message was like, Hannah, not Anna. I listened to Anna's episode and I said, what the heck? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And that is kind of your mentality about life, isn't it? In a way?
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. Give me one quick second.
Yeah. Oh, too much background noise. That's why you have the headphones on. You don't hear the background noise with your headphones, but, pro podcasting 101 as you learn, but that's the way it goes. But when you think about too, I'll have been back from FDIC by the time this comes out, and then you guys will probably be seeing and hearing more about FDIC after that fact. But one of the things is that when you're there, there are firefighters from around the world there, and you get to network and meet so many different people, and it's kind of my time to go and catch up with a lot of old friends. I mean, there's going to be a couple of podcast guests that I've never met, and I will get to meet this year at FDIC, even though we've done the podcast together. So super excited for that. And it's kind of one of those what the heck moments, because even for me, way back when before I started the podcast and got into all this social media stuff, it was like, what the heck? Mm-hmm. But that's why Hannah reached out to me. So is that the motto? That's what you go with?
Yeah, I don't even know where the what the heck motto came from, to be quite honest. There was just one day, I think I was just doing something and I'm like, what the heck? Why not? And then it somehow turned out well. So I think that gave me a false sense of confidence to be like, you know what? We're just going to kind of roll with it now. And over the years, as I've gotten a little bit smarter and been around people that are much smarter than me, I've kind of been a little bit more picking and choosing with kind of when I say what the heck, because sometimes it's like, probably shouldn't do this. But a lot of the bigger decisions in my life have really kind of been a what the heck moment. Like, because a lot of the time, like if you look at some of the decisions kind of that I've made on paper, it's like this is insane. Why did you do this? Like, this is not necessarily not normal, but it's kind of one of those like leaps of faith, I suppose. And I'm just kind of like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, they say no, like I don't get the job, I go to find something else. Okay, like thousands of people do this every day. Like, why can't I?
Oh my God, there's so much to unpack with what you just said. So, that like, what the heck mentality is amazing. And, I wanted to say this before, but Wayne Gretzky says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? Mm-hmm. And as you mature in life, and especially in the fire service too, and get into leadership roles, you're still saying what the heck a lot, but you're taking calculated risks. And that's essentially what you look at as you're maturing with this what the heck, mm-hmm. right? And when the worst they could say is no, then what the heck? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you've been told no before, right? I would think.
With the oldest child, I was told no many times.
Oh, see, as the youngest child, I was never told no. So it did take me a while to understand that. You probably matured way faster than I did when it came to like the no.
I like to think so. Some people would probably, who know me pretty well, would probably disagree with that.
But a lot of it too is that, and I think we all have a little bit of this in us, is that fear of failure, mm-hmm. right? Because if you're not taking risks because you're afraid to fail, you're not really moving, you're not expanding, you're not moving forward. But I definitely still have the fear of failure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It never goes away. I think part of like with the what the heck, it comes with this, like, I have this like little sidebar of it is like fake it till you make it. Like, I could be just absolutely terrified. But again, there was something I learned from one of the guys I used to work with. He was like, you need to be like a duck, Hannah. Calm on the surface, paddling like hell underwater. And I'm like, okay, because I'm someone who very much wears like their emotions and their feelings on their face. And I don't take me to Vegas is what I'm saying. Like, just, it wouldn't go well. So it's been kind of, again, just with being in the fire service for only 2 years, it's a drop in the bucket to a whole career. But like just some of those like lessons that I've like brought into the fire service, and that some people that I respect and care about have kind of given me to kind of tack onto these things. I think have really just given me kind of more of a leg up than I think if I had started out, like, again, not that's good, bad, or indifferent. Like if I had started like when I was 18, because God knows I was not the most mature human at 18. So, and I'm not sure if I'm the most mature human at 29, but I like to think I'm smarter.
I agree. I'm definitely not the most mature human at 45, right? Yeah, 45 at all. And it's funny because like, if you go back to my episode that airs before you, I talk about starting at this whole thing in 16, or actually, no, it wasn't on my own. I was on another podcast the other night. I was on someone else's podcast, and I talked about starting at 16 mm-hmm. and being like, I was not ready for all these things that I saw and did mm-hmm. and thought I knew about because of that maturity level, and that kind of comes with life. Mm-hmm. But that like fake it till you make it term, I don't really think the people that are out there really trying, no one's really faking it. You're learning mm-hmm. at that time, right? It's like learning and learning and learning, and that learning never stops, even if you make it. Mm-hmm. So when I look at that and I compare it to that duck, and I think on the East Coast, we use a swan swimming across the water, but their feet are going like that underneath type thing, not a duck. Could be a Midwest thing. It's okay. But it's that thought of like, I feel like that's what I am every day of my life. Like, from this part up, I look like I got it all together, but really what's going on inside is my mind's running a mile a minute.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just there are just situations like both in and out of the fire service where I'm sitting there going, oh, how am I going to do this today? And I'm like, well, I've done it. I've made it this far. Might as well just keep going. So I'm just like, okay, just paddle faster. I hear banjo music.
Right. So I love how you said in and out of the fire service, mm-hmm. because I feel like when you're in the emergency services, fire service in particular, people, they feel like that has to be their be all end all. Mm-hmm. Right. But there's still this outside of life. And it's funny because that's another reason why you kind of got in touch with me, because of your pre-fire service life that I still think kind of goes on. But mm-hmm. let's jump back a little bit to kind of get your story and get it rolling here before we talk too much about the fire service. And people are like, that's kind of boring. So like, oldest of how many kids are you?
I'm the oldest of 4. So I have me, my brother, my sister, and then my brother. So my parents like planned out just perfectly.
They knocked it all out. And how far apart are you guys? Super far or like?
So me and my brother are about 3 years apart, and then him and my sister are 2 years apart, and then my youngest brother and I are about 10-ish years apart.
Gotcha. Okay, that's still good. It's decent gap there, right? When you come down to it.
Yeah, we just kind of had that steady stream of getting us all out of the house within like a 2-year gap. So my parents are happily empty nesters with 2 dogs now.
Oh, if they're empty nesting with four of you and you're only in your early 30s there, or about to be 30, then your parents are like the high five to them, because that is the pro model of parenting right there. Unless they just change the locks on you guys and we're like, get out. We're not giving
That's
you a key.
also a distinct possibility, but
That's okay.
so
I'm
far they
totally okay
haven't.
with that parenting model too, of like, nah, you don't live here no more. Locks are changed. No idea who you are. Call me at Christmas type thing.
Exactly. And they're like, oh yeah, we're on vacation. And I'm like, when were you going to tell any of us that you left?
No, there's no reason to tell you. Because that's what the
Exactly.
parents do when they're leaving. So good for your parents, man. Congrats to them. I have to meet them someday because I want to do that. That's my goal in life, is to have these boys gone out of my house as soon as they can be.
My dad's one of those people that'll make friends with a brick wall. And he also has a glorious mustache, so you two could like bond over that. So
Thank you. This is not my permanent though. This is like a come and go type thing. So it's here for now and it'll be gone again soon. But it's funny because my wife says that's why I have a podcast, because I could talk to a wall. So it's easy. So if your dad's ever looking for a part-time gig, you should get into podcasting, because that's all the talent you need, apparently.
see, he didn't retire very well from the fire service. He retired after 26 and a half years, and I know we're kind of jumping a little bit.
That's okay. Well, now we're talking about your dad, not you, so it's okay. I didn't even know your dad was in the fire service.
My
so there we go.
entire family has been. That's how him and my mom met.
Okay, let's go. Here we go.
They both
You
were
left that part out, so.
they both were volunteers near a department actually near this area, and they met. And my dad lovingly likes to tell this story of how he saved my mom's life. So they were doing a training thing, just smoked up, no live fire, stuff like that. My mom's bottle, like her vibro alert started going off and whatnot. So my dad ran down 4 flights of stairs, ran all the way back up, and this is like in the early 90s, so the bottle was probably about as big as I am, and he ran up 4 flights of stairs with that thing, the whole bottle, like getting ready to change it out, and some other guy took it and swapped it out for my mom. So we lovingly like to tell that story of how he saved mom's life, but some other guy stole her.
I just find it nice that they brought her a bottle instead of being like, get out and go get your own bottle and come back in, because that's normally the attitude that I've always met for man, woman, child, anyone. Like, oh, your bottle's vibrating, guess you gotta leave, go get a new one.
Oh yeah, no, like she was heading towards the window, like she was getting ready to come out. My dad was like, no, I got this. It was the rare chivalry in action from firemen that you don't get to see too much.
Well, it worked out well for him. Look at that, right?
It did.
It did. The other guy, he just was the guy who stole the bottle, so he still made the chivalry, right?
Exactly.
So the fire service then is something that you've kind of been interested in, maybe, or not? You were like, I don't want to do it because my parents did it.
So growing up, I never had that mindset of, oh, I don't want to be a firefighter. It was just something that was like, oh, this is just part of my life. Like, dad's gone every third day, sometimes for 48, sometimes for 24, sometimes he misses holidays, things like that. Like, it was never not normal in my life. Just because they were about, I think dad was about 2 years in by the time when him and my mom married. So by the time they had me, he was 3-4 years in, and he was at his department that he ended up staying with his entire career. So I mean, through 4 kids, everything like that, it was just something like we would go to the firehouse and go visit dad. There's pictures of me standing on his fire truck, wearing his coat, which looking back now of all like the PFAS conversations we're having, I'm like, I'm pretty sure 3-year-old me shouldn't be wearing that coat.
Listen, man, I have my 10-day-old in my helmet and the engine. So like, listen, we've all learned, right? You grow and you learn things. Like maybe when he was 4, he shouldn't have put my mask on sitting in the back seat, just hanging out. Like, but it was quick. So you have to learn. At least we're learning, right?
Listen, we ate dirt as kids. We ran around barefoot as kids. We're fine. It's all good. But no, growing up, it was never something that like I hated or like something that I didn't want to be a part of. I think it was just something that was just part of my everyday life. Like people saying, oh, like my dad's a doctor, or my dad's a businessman. Like, I'm like, yeah, my dad's a firefighter. This is just, it's normal. Like I remember when I was little, he would take me into his classrooms when he would teach high school kids CPR. And I'd just be like little 2-year-old me just sitting in the back, just coloring crowns and stuff. And occasionally he'd be like, hey, come up here and show them CPR. And this is like 2-year-old me. And I'm just like jumping on this like dummy that's like twice my size. And they're like, she's like, he can do it. And so like, it was just always something I did. And never something I had any like resentment for, like, especially like if dad was gone or things like that. Like I never felt any resentment for it. And it was just nothing I ever really considered as a career. Even though my dad also, on top of being a firefighter, he would also teach firefighting classes in high school. Like he would teach kids how to become firefighters out of high school. Like they get their fire 1, fire 2s, and like all their hazmat stuffs, and come out as like certified firefighters ready to like go get jobs. So again, it was just something that's always been a part of my life, but I decided to take a little different route getting here. So
no, but it's one of those things too, where like my kids, like my dad was a firefighter and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Mm-hmm. And it was just what he did. Mm-hmm. Right. I didn't see it as, like you said, like people that you're friends with, their dads are doctors. Like that's what their dad does, or their mom's a doctor, or their mm-hmm. mom's this, whatever. You just see it. And even for my kids, they've never known any difference mm-hmm. between me going to work for 24 hours and being gone for 72 and missing birthdays and holidays and things. And mm-hmm. it's so unique that you kind of bring up your upbringing, because there was a time where I got moved into an admin spot in the office mm-hmm. and I was working day work, and it was crazy. Like my kids did not like me, like for the first time in their little lives. And they were little guys. Like they were, I don't know, 6 and 4 or something like that, 7 and 5, wherever they were in that younger stage. Mm-hmm. But they were old enough to know that this wasn't the life they were used to. Mm-hmm. They were used to dad being gone for 24 hours, not being there, like dad being home on Tuesday and Wednesday in the summer. Let's go to the beach. Mm-hmm. And it was like, no, we're not going to the beach today. I got to go to work type thing. Yeah. And they really didn't like it. And that schedule at that time did not work for my family. And I was like, I got to get back on shift, because I do not want my kids hating me for this. But it's just something that they grew up with. Like you're saying, it's mm-hmm. just something that you did, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's all we knew for how long? 26 and a half years. Even when I moved and went to college and whatnot, it was always dad's on shift or something like that whenever I would come back home. And it's just something normal. So I guess when I was kind of picking what I wanted to do in high school and whatnot, I had grown up on a farm as well. And I was like, you know what? I kind of like this whole like medical thing. Like I'm pretty good at science. Like I'm pretty good with animals. So I was like, you know what? We're going to go into veterinary medicine. So that was kind of the first step of what the heck, why not? And I ended up applying to Purdue University to their veterinary nursing program. And for anybody who doesn't know, they only take about 20 applicants a year out of about 150. So it was kind of like, yeah, the odds are stacked against me. I'm not coming from like, I didn't volunteer in vet clinics. I didn't volunteer in shelters. Like my only experience was 4-H and bottle feeding calves at my own house. Like that was it. Like
I didn't know there were veterinary nursing programs. I'll be honest with you. I just thought there was the vet and the vet tech, and mm-hmm. Like we did watch. My family and I were really into that show. It was about like the Ohio Zoo, the Columbus Zoo, I think. Mm-hmm. And so like, and I have a friend whose daughter is in vet school, so I've learned a little bit from there, but I did not know there were veterinary nursing programs. So mm-hmm. you applied to Purdue and you
ended up getting in.
Wow. Look at that. See, knocked it out.
Still not sure how that happened, but ended up going to Purdue for 4 years, graduating with the degree, and kind of the next step of that for me, the next step of what the heck, why not, was you know what? I'm going to move out of state. So I ended up applying to a couple of different, I wanted to work for a college just because in that particular field, a lot of the money you find like working at the universities or working for the government, like there's not a lot in practice money, but mm-hmm. I ended up applying down to UT in Tennessee. So about 2 weeks ago's basketball game was a little rough for me. Watching Purdue and Tennessee
on both
play.
Teams?
It was a little bit rough. But I ended up graduating from Purdue and 2 weeks later moving down sight unseen to Knoxville. I never had been there my entire life, had no family down there, no friends. And I'm like, why not? This could be good. This could be the start of something good. So
So I want to go back a little bit because I know nothing about veterinary nursing. I do know that veterinary school is very obviously hard to get into and then challenging when you're in there.
Mhm.
So for your college, Purdue, for veterinary nursing, how does that work out? Like, is it a lot of veterinary classes, a lot of science classes, a lot of liberal artsy stuff?
No. So the first year they kind of have you knock out like all your basics, like your biology, your chemistry, your math, like just your basic requirements. So that's all freshman year. Your sophomore, junior, and senior year, you're basically living at the vet school. Like you're taking anatomy classes, you're taking physiology, little bit of like pharmacology, clinical pathology, necropsy. Like you are taking basically everything a doctor would take in medical school and compressing it into 3 years. Plus, you're having to learn the difference between a dog, a cow, a cat, a horse, exotics like snakes, things like that. And you're working alongside the veterinary students, which is a really good collaboration because in that world, like those veterinarians rely on their techs and nurses to kind of do all the behind the scenes work to kind of really get that job done so they can like worry about like each patient as they go. So it was good for the veterinary students to kind of realize, hey, these guys are learning alongside us. This is what their job is. This is what their expectation is. This is what my expectation should be as a veterinarian with these techs, and kind of building up from there. So it makes for a really good relationship. And I really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed the challenge of being like, hey, you're on your own by yourself at 2:00 in the morning with this horse that's trying to throw itself down on the ground in pain. Like help is coming, but how can you handle this situation by yourself right now without getting hurt?
It's such a different thing, like animals and people, because people can tell you what's wrong with them. Whether they're right, wrong, or indifferent is a whole different story, or you want to hear them. But with animals, you have to, it's more of an investigation, right? And I do know someone who's a vet, and she tells us stories all the time about it. And again, I need to know, like, I don't know, I thought if you wanted to be like the vet in the little animal vet that you bring your dog to, that was what you went to school for. But they have to learn everything. Like they have to learn exotics, they have to learn large animals, small animals, all these things, and then they kind of pick their path after that. But they know it all, and I never really thought about it. Like I figured the tech just kind of was on the job training, and again, didn't know there was a nurse there type thing. So never really paid that much attention to it, but it's interesting to hear these different levels. And when you say like that they're training together, you know, the veterinary nurses and the vets while you're in school, think about what a better but medicine would be if maybe doctors and nurses kind of came up together a little bit more and got along in that level, let's say.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree on that. I think I think something I learned a lot that I think kind of helped me as I was transitioning into my like fire service career, I think was like kind of that independent thinking and being like, hey, like my officer is over here doing this. Like, how can I help? Like, it's kind of like preemptive thinking where it's like, hey, I know what this vet's going to need with this patient. How can I get things ready? How can I get things started? Like, it's kind of that initiative taking that I think has really probably been one of the more valuable things I've taken from my veterinary career into the fire service career, is kind of that like being proactive and like kind of being able to read your officer or your partner. I think has been really kind of one of the more important things I've learned.
Yeah, because you're collaborating with them, right? All too often. And again, not that there's anything wrong with the fire service paramilitary model, and we need that in what we have, but there is that level of collaboration where I want that anticipatory thinking. Like I want you to be able to already be able to anticipate kind of which direction I'm going into. So you're already going into that direction. And I guess with animals again, and that danger factor, which listen, man, I do live in horse country, New Jersey right now. But I was born in a more inner city area of New Jersey. Let's say, whole different world when it comes to like, you know, never really thought about how dangerous taking care of a horse could be when they're sick type thing. We did learn that on that Ohio show, the Columbus Zoo's show, because they were taking care of elephants and the things you never think about, like ever. And we also too, in New Jersey, there are like equine rescue classes you could take. I've never taken one, but
yeah, that was actually pretty funny when I got into the fire service. They're like, oh yeah, we're taking like a horse rescue class. And I'm like, are we going to give him this drug and this drug? And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, we can give them this. Like, it's fine. Like, we've got a whole dosage and everything.
No, you can't.
We can put the straps on. Like, we're cool.
Maybe in your paramedic classes, they teach you how to do that. In ours, we're only allowed to give humans the drugs that we have, unfortunately.
I mean, that's probably fair. I probably shouldn't be trying to give a human medication to a horse, even though we kind of do that anyways. So.
They're almost the same. But it is interesting, though, you say this, too, because where I work, though, in New Brunswick, we have Rutgers University, and they have a large agricultural college there, Cook College, and there are horses, pigs, sheep, goats, all kinds of different animals running around there. And it's kind of like, please, just don't be at work if there's ever an issue with any of these animals, because...
See, I'd be so excited.
Like a whole new
world.
Like,
let's go! And they're like, why?
Yeah, nah, I'd be like, man. And even if we were to like say, hey, let's call the folks that know what they're doing in this thing, they're pretty far away. Like, it's going to take them, like, we're going to have to do something. I don't know what it's going to be. Maybe I'll call you, Hannah. I'll be like, hey, I'm going to FaceTime with you. Tell me what to do here. But there are things that you kind of need to know. And it's interesting to have someone, I would say, like you, to come to a department and be like, well, I kind of know these things. Like, this is what you do want to do. Like, it gives you a little bit of a extra bonus, right?
Mm-hmm. It definitely helped me when I was going through EMT classes, because I think I specifically remember when I was sitting through my classes that they were like, it's the terminology that is probably going to be the hardest for a lot of people to learn. And I'm sitting there going, okay, yeah. Because of my background, like the terminology translated, again, I was obviously learning more human medicine than you're a horse and cow medicine, because we are physiologically different. But it was funny because I got the nickname the horse doctor in class, because I would accidentally just say something like, oh, like, well, what about this, this, and this? And they're like, you can't do that on a person. And I'm like, fair enough. Okay.
There's only 4 chambers of the heart on a person. There's not 8. It's only 4. Remember that. Like, but it's interesting, too, because you hear that. Because remember, for my listeners out there that are not involved in the emergency services, a lot of times when people go to EMT class to become an emergency medical technician, they're coming with no medical background. Mm-hmm. You don't even need a high school diploma, really, to take an EMT class. You can take it in high school, even in New Jersey. You can do that still. So you get this very compressed course in a very short amount of time with a lot of medical terminology that you have to learn. And I'm guessing all your college classes where you're like, I know this terminology, we're good.
Like, and again, it was different just in the fact, again, that everything was very compressed. Like, I went to school from August, and this is while I'm also on shift. So I'm like learning how to become a firefighter and whatnot as I'm like taking these EMT courses. So like from August to December, I got my basic. And then because of the way Tennessee works, they do advanced EMTs before you go to paramedic school. And then from January to May, I was doing my advanced. So for me, it was just like, oh, like I'd been out of college for a little bit and I'd been away from it. But for me, it was like, oh, this is like just a college semester. Like I know how to study, like I know how to do this. But it was just that material was all so compressed that kind of made that difference. And again, I really enjoyed that bit. It was fun to kind of be able to translate some things that I knew into like human medicine and even kind of like what we were talking about earlier, talking about like how my initial patients couldn't tell me what was going on with them. Like all they could do was like try to bite and kick me. And again, not that some of our human patients don't try that every now and then.
Very true. Very true.
But it was kind of that reading between the lines of like somebody saying, hey, I'm having difficulty breathing, or hey, my chest hurts. And you're kind of looking more at what they're not telling you and kind of what you're seeing just as that provider, that I think has, again, just translated really well into this part of my career.
It's such an interesting thing that you say that in EMS, because they give you protocols. So like if your patient's having chest pain, do this, this, and this. Mm-hmm. And this is how it works. And you're like, oh, cool. You gave me this protocol and I can follow it because it's chest pain. But then they also tell you, you really have to look at the whole patient and make sure that that's what's wrong with them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the failures we see in EMS providers is that they miss that line where they say you have to look at the whole patient. You know, you have to see what they're not telling you before you just run down this road of like, okay, chest pain, let's do this, this, and this.
Exactly. Yeah, that. And I think one of the biggest things I've always taken away from both my veterinary and my EMT lessons was don't look at the numbers, look at the patient. Because you could be having somebody that's sat in 99 and you look over them, their lips are blue, and you're like, something's not right here. And it's time to use a little bit of outside of the box thinking, which again, I think to a certain degree, again, very limited experiences, but I think the fire service both does a really good and a really terrible job at sometimes. So it's allowing that outside the box thinking.
You have to look at the entire patient. You have to look at that entire house. You know, it's like when they tell you your scene size up begins at dispatch. That's 100% true, and only getting truer now that I have a computer screen that shows me what the house looks like I'm going to. And I'm like, oh, look, I can see I'm going to a 2.5-story wood frame with no exposure problems. Or I'm going to a row home that's in the middle if the address is actually correct, right?
Exactly.
And that's that getting that bigger picture and having to kind of break it down. So I think that's another key part. But, you know, we'll get back into you taking leaps. So you left Indiana and went to Kentucky, which isn't very far away either.
Tennessee.
Necessarily. Or Tennessee. Sorry, not Kentucky. Sorry. So it is a little further away then. I was thinking Kentucky. So my bad.
No.
So that was a decent jump, I guess, right?
It was about a 7-hour drive. And I, again, growing up in the middle of rural Indiana and going to the middle of Knoxville, Tennessee, which is both a college town and it's a pretty urban area. That was kind of a really big change for me. And then, and again, just living alone. I ended up adopting my dog 2 weeks after I moved down there because I was like, I can't stand coming back to an empty apartment. Like, because I'm just so used to having just like family around and like all this noise and whatnot. And it was the first year was a little rough. Just kind of being out on my own as a freshly minted 22-year-old in a city where she didn't know anybody, a state that she'd never been to in her life. And then just kind of starting a new job with new people and being expected to just take on this just responsibility. My job description, for lack of a better term, was I was running the ER, community practice, isolation, and neonate unit for the university for horses. Like, I was kind of put in the position, there wasn't anybody I could learn from. There wasn't anybody who could kind of teach me. And not to say that nobody didn't help me or teach me. Like, my veterinarians were awesome about like trying to understanding that I was getting my feet under me. But on top of things, I was also responsible for teaching veterinary students how to not die during their clinicals, because a lot of them, their only experience with horses had either been somebody's farm or like maybe like a cadaver lab or something, and now they're being put in very stressful situations where this 1,000-pound animal is sick, and I have to teach them how to put in catheters, how to administer medication, how we're going to do treatments, and all the while, like, I'm responsible for their safety, my safety, the animal safety, and all these procedures that the veterinarian is expecting to get done. So all the while making a learning experience.
No stress
too.
no stress at all in any of that. Like, none at all. I did not know there was a neonatal equine medicine unit. So again, learning new things today here on the Size Up for sure.
Foaling season was both the best and worst time of the year for me, because they're so darn cute. But when they're 120 pounds and you have to move them because they can't stand up on their own, you get good at deadlifts pretty quick. Good form. So a neonatal horse is 125 pounds? When it's born? I mean, mom's about 1,000 pounds. They come out.
No, I knew that. I knew horses weighed a lot, but I'm thinking like, oh, she's got like 20-pound horses, like they're neonatals. Like, what's a regular horse weight when it's born? Help the Jersey guy out.
I mean, anywhere, but depending on the breed, you can have anywhere between 80 to 120. Like your big Clydesdale horses, like they come out as tall as I am, and I'm 5'2" for reference.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. Well, hey, there we go. Horse stuff. So you're doing the veterinary med thing. You're in Tennessee, and you decide what the heck and want to be a firefighter. Like,
yeah. So that kind of started creeping in. I worked at the university for about almost 5 years, and kind of in that time, COVID happened. And just a bunch of other things kind of went down where I was just personally just kind of looking ahead at my future and being like, can I do this for 15, 20 years? Like at this point, like my body was very physically beat down. Just because of the constant moving, just the kind of just the toll it takes on you working with 1,000-pound animals and you being on your feet on concrete floors for 10 plus hours a day. And it was just kind of one of those things where I was sitting there like, okay, like I'd like to make a change, but what do I want to do? that would make me feel fulfilled and be meaningful to me, because I'm not an 8 to 5 desk job person. Like that's just not who I am. It's never who I've been. So kind of thinking and kind of looking, I kind of was looking at my dad, and then at the time, both of my brothers were firefighters. So I was kind of looking, I was like, you know what? I think I could do that. I think I want to give this a try. So I called my dad one day, because there were a couple of departments in the area that were hiring, and I was like, hey dad, like I think I'm going to quit veterinary medicine and I want to go into firefighting. And he's like, like he said these 2 words. He's like, are you sure? Like 3 words. Sorry, I can't count. Because
good question. It's a good question.
I kind of, and it was kind of just a multi-layered thing. Like he wasn't just asking me like, hey, are you sure about quitting your job? He's like, hey, you are basically going into the family business. Like people are going to at least somewhat know the name on the back of your coat. They're going to judge you by not only your last name, but by just you as, again, I hate bringing this in, but like just as a woman in the fire service, because down in the South, it's not very common.
It's still not very common anywhere, which is, it's getting more common. Like I hate to say it's not very common, right? And I hate to say that you're still discriminated against, but it is way more common and it is less discriminatory than it was, but it's still not common. Yeah, it's still a male dominated field, right? Is kind of how you have to look at it.
Right. And again, going into that, like my mindset was, like I'm going to walk in like as a woman and they're just going to give me, like, no, like I want to fight for my spot and like prove that I deserve to be here, that like that I can do this job. And at the time when I got hired in my department, that I was at, that I was only second or third. I was only one of 3 women on that department. Another one got hired with me, and there was one that had just got hired for the first time the year prior. So walking into this department, having women on the department was still a fairly new concept. So,
yep. Well, and 2, you also face the like, and not that it's not like it's just, I think at this point in my career, I'm used to it, but it was like, you did this other job for so long, you went to college for this other job, why do you want to do this job now? Like, why all of a sudden are you like, so there's always that question that you have, and not that it's not a bad thing, but we all want to know, you know what I mean? Like, what's up? Why did you not want to do that anymore? Like,
I think for me, when I made the decision to go into firefighting, I think for me, it was more of a, hey, this is what my dad's done. Like he seems like he's enjoyed it. My brothers enjoyed it. Like it wasn't something that initially, and I'll admit it, that I wasn't initially like super into and passionate about. It was just something that's like, hey, this seems like a really physical job. It seems like something that would challenge me and like allow me to continually learn, which is something I also enjoy. But kind of as I started getting more and more into it, like as I started going through the academy for the first time and whatnot, I was like, no, like this is something I could really get into. Like this is not only about like fighting fire, but this is about pushing yourself both physically and mentally. This is about serving a community, which again, I didn't live in the community that I worked in, but I got to know people really well just by, again, your frequent flyers, things like that. And just kind of working with the other departments in the area too. Like you kind of got to know the people in the area, and then the people who have been there for years and years and years. It was odd moving from like, I always make the joke, like, I don't know how I got in this profession just because I'm very introverted and my people skills were not quite up to par when I first started. But it's the fact that I more enjoyed like learning about like people and kind of what made them tick, either inside the fire service or like inside the community, and being able to have those interactions, that kind of started pushing me a little bit more. And now that I've started on another department, my kind of why is moved, like the why, as I like to call it, has kind of changed from like not only serving the community, but like pushing myself more, because a lot of my stuff initially was external motivation, but now it's kind of like, okay, how can I do this? How can I prep myself to best serve the community? Again, something I enjoy doing, but like, how can I do this also for myself? Because again, firefighting is a very selfless profession. I think it should be a very selfless profession. There are some who don't treat it that way, but being self-motivated and like being able to push myself every day, be it in training, be it just in interactions I have every day, on duty or not, that I think have really kind of changed my mindset for the better. And again, like, it took me less than 6 months to be like, yes, I love this job. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But the initial took a little bit, and kind of seeing other people's passion for it that really kind of drove me further to that direction.
I feel like, too, what you're talking about that not a lot of folks like to talk about, though, is that passion for it that you learned, right? Like, I think so many people think we're just born this way. Like, your dad was firefighter. My dad was firefighter. You're born into this. You're made to do this job. And it's not the truth. No one's made to do any job, right? And you have to kind of figure it all out for yourself. Sure, there's some commonalities between us, and sure, we had a little bit more of a leg up of understanding how this whole thing works than someone who's coming in totally cold, but we're all learning it together. And it's that kind of I don't even know if it's self-motivation, self-starting, that what the heck attitude that you need to keep having as you move forward, right? To keep you going and keep you learning and keep you wanting to stay engaged, because it's very easy in any career to just not be engaged anymore.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly on that. I mean, heck, even in the meager 2 years that I've had, I mean, there were moments where I'm like, I'm like just pacing around the bay, just waiting for a call. And I'm like, how do I keep myself motivated? How do I keep myself learning? And I think a lot of what helped me was the people I was around, like the crews. Like, there were some guys who had 5 years on. There were guys who had been here since the department had been, transitioned to career, because they were volunteer initially. But there were some guys who had been around for that long, and everybody kind of had their different levels of passion and kind of what they were good about. Like, my 2 senior guys, best damn engineers I've ever met. Like, you could ask them anything about that truck, like your ladder, your engine, and they could tell you the whole thing. And for me, math is not my forte. So when we're doing like pump calculations, I'm sitting there going, Lord, please help me.
That's why I became an officer. There's no math in being an officer. No math in pump calculations when you're on the officer side. Totally why I did it.
Exactly. But then I would go and ask like one of my other guys who was like super into like working out. Like, he really wants to be like a Georgia smoke diver and like do all this stuff. Like, everybody's kind of forte was different and the same. And like, I kind of got to be known a little bit more for like the medical side, just again, because I was the horse doctor. So, so it was one of those things where it's like everybody's passion was just a little different. Isn't that
so great, right? That is what makes this thing so awesome. And so many mother effers out there want to deny it. They want us all to be the exact same. They want everybody to be that Georgia smoke diver. They want everybody to be passionate about the engine, because that's what Andy Frederick said we were supposed to be. Or like, I could go on and on about each one of that. But we're all different. And to me, that is the best part of this, is the differences and taking strengths and weaknesses and putting them together to do this job that we get to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's always kind of been something that I've really enjoyed, because again, I was very lucky and very fortunate to be with a crew that just had all those varied interests, and yet somehow like on calls, like we'd all obviously do the kitchen table thing and just take the shit out of each other for funsies. But like when a call came, like I knew like, hey, my engineer's got the door, like he's gonna, like, be it medical or fire, like my engineer's gonna have the truck, he's gonna have the door, make sure that we're okay. I'll be in there with my officer, he'll kind of be managing the situation, but he would give us that independence and levity to be like, hey, you're going to be doing this call, like me and my partner are going to be running this call, and he's just going to be in the background and obviously step in if something's like not going right or if something needs to change. But it was kind of that strengths and weaknesses and that understanding of each other and being like, hey, we're all a little different. We've all got these little niches and things we're interested in, but like we're a crew. Like that has always been the most important thing. And I was very, very fortunate to start my career out with these guys, because they gave me a lot of really good lessons that I'm hoping I can bring into my new department. So
which again was another what the heck moment where it's like, all right, I'm working here and now I'm going to go work someplace else, which isn't, listen, I'm not going to be like, yo, you're the only person that does this, because again, as in New Jersey, I've said this before, we don't really move departments very often, especially in the more established departments and the cities. Now there are a lot of smaller departments, like you said, transitioning from volunteer to career, and you do see movement there. But you decided to not just move departments, but move states as well. Again, to bring yourself back home where you started. The name on your coat didn't mean anything. You could have been like, yeah, my dad's fireman. Like, it was cool.
Yeah.
But now you're going back to a place where maybe your name's a little more known, I guess.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, so kind of that transition kind of started happening about a year ago. And I know that sounds kind of early, be like, oh, she's only in the fire service for 2 years, with the department for 2 years, like a year now, she's already thinking about leaving. But kind of something that's always been important to me is my family. We've always been very close knit. Like today, like I'm talking to you at one of my family's, my aunt's houses, because we're all just visiting and we want to hang out. So like that's always been a part of my life growing up. And it had kind of started at the time, like at this point, like I had been living in Tennessee for almost a decade. Like we were going on 7-8 years. And for me, it was kind of like, okay, like I really like my department. I like this job, but I want to be closer to home. And part of the catalyst for that was I ended up missing my brother's wedding. They were getting married in Wisconsin, and I couldn't get off shift. I was in class. And again, it's part of the fire service life. Everybody there understood, and they were like, we're sorry you can't make it. But for me, it really hurt because I wanted to be there for my brother. And nobody was stopping me. It was just a bunch of just different things that ended up compiling for that not to happen. So for me, it was kind of like, okay, like, I don't want something like this to happen again. Like, I'd like to be closer to home. But with that, it was kind of one of those, like, I don't want to just make a rash decision and just willy-nilly pick a department just because. Like, again, I was very happy with the department I was working at, very happy with where I was, and knew that I would be uprooting a lot of my life again to not only move from Tennessee, which I considered my home at this point, but back home to where my family was. And so it took me about up until last December, so December of 2023, to kind of make a couple of decisions, whittle it down to about 3 departments. I was like, okay, these are the ones like I'd like to make an application to. Ended up getting an interview with my current one in January. And then it was funny, I did the interview with them, which was virtual. And about 5 minutes later, like we hung up, had a cordial interview and whatnot. About 5 minutes later, I get a phone call going, we'd like to hire you. And I'm like, okay.
All right, that's an easy one.
I was expecting this to be like in the fall or something.
Cheers.
But like, they're like, no, like we'd like to start in the spring. We understand that you need to move, that a lot of things need to happen. And they're like, we want to do what we can to get you up here, get everything done. Because Indiana does what's called PERF for the retirement. So it's their own state retirement fund. And I had to do like a bunch of physicals and stuff to be considered good to go, not only for the job, but for that retirement fund. So they're like, we're going to give you some dates. We're going to get you up here and we're going to get all of your stuff done. So you only have to miss like 1 shift at your firehouse. Just because they knew I'd be traveling like 7-8 hours to get there.
That's a win. I mean, and again, too, I think, what you're talking about, and again, I'm assuming this just from our short time spent together, but you were upfront about everything that you needed to be upfront about. And like how you said, like, oh, you've only been here 2 years, but you decided to leave. Listen, if you're honest about wanting to do something like that with everyone around you, new department, old department, you're not leaving because you're like, oh, I hate this place and I don't want to be here. You're telling them why you want to leave. And there could be a reason to be like, I hate this place and I don't want to be here. But even say that, like, I'm not really happy with the way things are here and I'm going to go someplace else. But I would assume you were as honest as you just were with me and the, thousands of people that are listening with that department, and hey, why not? Like, that's a great what the heck moment where like you take that risk and you try.
Yeah. And again, my department, they were super good about it. Like, they understood why I was making this decision. And again, I feel like I left on very good terms with them. They didn't like spit in my food or anything when I left. I did get pelted with a lot of water balloons, which was totally fine. I expected nothing less from them. But they were all super understanding. I'm still friends with a lot of guys down there. I've always been like, hey, you guys are going to be up here for FDIC. Hit me up. We'll go hang out. Like, and I'm actually probably going to try to get back down there for one of the guys' weddings in September. So again,
which again, like in society in general, and especially in the fire service, that's what we're talking about, we have these negative connotations about things, right? And it makes no sense as to why. You know what I mean? Like, if someone wanted to leave our job, my job, it very, very rarely happens. I would just want to know why. Just let me know, man. What's up? Was it me? Was I the worst boss ever? And you don't want to be anywhere around me, so you're leaving the whole state? Like, or was it for whatever, you know? And obviously sometimes people don't want to share reasons, and that's okay too, but then tell me that. Just don't bounce, for lack of a better term.
Just don't Irish goodbye.
The Irish goodbye is left for the bar, not when you're leaving a job. Any job too, not just the fire service. But absolutely. I think it's interesting, and like, I'm excited for you, and it's cool because we're getting into that hour mark where I like to cut this kind of off. And I think we got up to a cool part because you are currently in the academy for your new department. And this gives us a whole nother story in about a year now of your new what the heck moments, because I'm sure you're going to have a bunch. Are you already known as the horse doctor or no?
No, we've tried to keep that bit under wraps this time.
Well, it could be late if anybody listens to this in a few weeks, so you could be shafted now. You've just screwed yourself.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for that.
I mean, you'll forever be the horse doctor to me, if that makes you feel any better. Like, I keep thinking of Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, for some reason.
Oh my God,
like
yes.
Old bad show or whatever. I never watched it, but I know it. And for some reason that's been stuck in my head. Nothing to do with horses, except she rode one.
I'm so happy, but that just makes me so happy now.
So maybe I'll just call you Dr. Quinn when I see you at FDIC. I'll be like, oh, it's Dr. Quinn. What's happening?
I will happily answer to that. Nothing would make me happier. I wish I could be half that cool.
But we definitely have more to talk about too in another episode, because there was a blue hair phase. I saw some Star Wars stuff on your social media. Yes. There's definitely a fitness element that we have going on. So like, we can totally have a follow up. I mean, the Star Wars alone, I figured would have been, if for some reason you weren't communicating your story well, I was just going into Star Wars. So I'm excited to hear more about that. And
I'm always down for that. And I will have to say about the blue hair phase, I did go through my first department hiring with that blue hair.
Good for you.
I showed up to the written with bright blue hair. I did my physical with bright blue hair. I did my interview with it. And they're like, you're going to have to change this, right? And I'm like, yep, I've got an appointment next week.
So you probably, that's the smart answer when you're trying to get hired. But the other answer is there a policy? Does this make me less of a firefighter? Because my wife is a physician assistant and is known throughout her hospital as Tracy with the purple hair. And she has had some negative feedback from patients' family members about her hair color. And it's not about her ability to practice medicine. It is not about her ability to communicate with them. It's that they didn't prefer her hair color. And her kind of thing is like, no, this is me. And I get it. And the job we do is a little different. It is a whole different conversation that we can save for Dr. Quinn, episode 2 of Booth Size Up next year. So, but listen, I'm going to say thank you at the end. But again, I'm so happy you reached out because this has been a great conversation and it's cool to learn new things. So for me, this is like one of the most educational podcasts I've had in a while where I've gotten to learn so much.
Yes. Well, thank you again for having me. I'm so glad you took a chance on this. I've really enjoyed getting to talk to you, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the guests. I'm looking forward to the rest of the podcast y'all are doing, and I'm definitely looking forward to hearing the FDIC stories. So,
or we can hang out. You could be an FDIC story because I'm going to be there and you're right there. Like, and there's going to be a Size Up 10 FDIC edition, so you can answer these 10 today, and then next week I have a whole different 10 for FDIC. So
I would love that.
Cool. All right. Well, let's hit the Size Up 10 and see where you're at with these 10 at least, and then we'll. Man, I never thought about this, but if I have repeat guests, I'm going to have to change this whole questioning thing too. So, all right, here we go. Beach or mountains?
Mountains. Tennessee girl still.
Oh, see, and I loved how you said that too, where when you were, and I really hope like some young kids kind of listen to this podcast, because you were like, I'm moving out of state to a place I've never been, 7 hours away. Like totally your voice changed. You got very like, you were scared when you made that move. But now you're like, Tennessee girl, I'm in, right? And it's that thing, like, take the risk. What's the worst that happens? You're like, oh, I don't like this, and I'm going to go home. And two, you snuck in there again, because I do pay attention, that you didn't like it at first, but you got a dog. Mm-hmm. And the dog kind of made it better, right? Mm-hmm. Where there's so many people that are like, I don't like this, I don't like this. Refuse to change anything and end up kind of giving up, let's say.
Yeah, I'm not one for if I don't like something, I'm gonna find a way to change it, be it through or around. We're gonna get it done.
I love it. All right, question 2. A night out or a night in?
Night in. I'm a huge homebody. Like, I'm ready to be in my jammies by like 7:30. I got made fun of at work because I would always be in bed by like 9 o'clock on shift. And I'm like, listen, you laugh at me, but when we get called at 2 a.m, I'm going to be awake and you're not.
Yeah, it definitely took me to be an old fire officer to realize that going to bed early thing is the way to go. I used to be a bit of a night owl, especially when I first got hired. I came off working night shift, so I was like, right on. Like, let's stay up all night. Who cares? But I was young and stupid then.
Still never got used to that.
Here we go. Good book or good movie?
Good book. Love reading.
Nice. Cross-country road trip. Who is your celebrity co-pilot, living or dead?
Oh, man. You did this question with Anna, and I had an answer, and I was like, when I do this, I'm going to say this person. I have completely forgotten who it was, so I'm just going to go with, like, the first person that came to mind, Paul Rudd.
Okay, I like Paul Rudd. That's a good one. No one has said Paul Rudd yet, so that's a good one. He would be interesting.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it'd be fun.
Like just that dry Paul Ruddness. I could deal with that in a car ride.
It would.
All right. You're in Proby school. Do you make your bed every day?
Yes.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Give me a book everyone has to read.
Oh, there's so many books.
You can only pick one or two. There's really no rules.
I gotta think. I read so many books all the time. Oh man. All right, I'm gonna go with the first one that just came into my mind. Seabiscuit.
Okay. I saw the movie, didn't read the book, so maybe I'll go back and read that one. Mm-hmm. Highways or back roads? Which one you taking?
Highways. I get car sick, so back roads aren't great for me.
That's the first person to openly admit car sickness on the size of 10. So
I will straight up admit, like, if I'm in the back of an ambulance, I will get violently car sick. So I have a Zofran now to help with that. Because they're like, guess what, Proby? You're going in the back of the medic truck. And I'm like, okay.
I have to take Zofran to do this. Please don't. Oh, no.
I was like, please don't make me do this.
Dude, you're wearing an Isaac Fraser Into the Job shirt, and you can't ride in the back of the rescue? Like...
Not with a... See, like, the weird thing is...
Not with the back of a walk-in rescue. You could ride in the back of a four-seater, but you can't go a walk-in.
I'm great on engines, rescues. I'm totally fine. You get me in the back of an ambulance, I might as well just be the person over the side of the ship just throwing up. I don't know what it is. I've just never been good about it. It's so weird.
One, huh? Interesting. Always finding out new things. All right, give me a bucket list place you want to visit.
I'm going to have to say Scotland, because I was planning a trip back in 2020, and then COVID happened, and I've never taken the trip. So we're hoping to get that done the next few years.
Hopefully if you stay with this department and don't have to go back to the academy, or you can get some seniority and get your time off again.
I hope to gracious this is my last academy. It's not been bad, but man, 12 weeks, 8 to 5 is a lot.
Yes. I've never heard hope to gracious either, so that's a new one by me. So again, more Midwestern things happening today.
It is.
All right, 2 more questions. Is it football or football for you?
It's got to be football. All-American girl. Although I have recently gotten into rugby, so I don't know where that would fall in the spectrum. So
it's kind of somewhere in the middle. But you know, rugby is a fun sport. I have a lot of rugby knowledge if you're looking for any type of rugby stuff from someone I'm related to. So
perfect.
Lots of rugby
I need
in our
all
lives.
The rules explained to me.
All right, last one. The best advice you could give to your younger self.
Don't be afraid of what everybody else is thinking about you, because in the end, it doesn't matter anyway.
True story. We could all use that in our lives. Even the 45-year-old podcast host from New Jersey could still use hearing that. So, Hannah, this has been a great what the heck moment. So thank you so much for joining me today. This has been awesome.
Well, thank you again for having me. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I'm looking forward to hearing the episode. I'm looking forward to hearing what's next for y'all on the Size Up, and it's just been a great conversation. So thank you for this. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Nah, no worries. You're so brave, too, for listening to your own episode, because I rarely listen to any of my full episodes. After the editing room is over with, I'm done. So
well, the only reason I'd end up doing it was because I know, like, my family and friends are going to listen, and I'd be like, do I remember saying that? Did I say that?
You don't. You're 100%. You're going to have, like, 10 things. You're going to be like, I said that? Oh, my God. It happens all the time.
I should have said this.
All good. You have episode 2, so take notes when you listen to episode 1, so you're ready for episode 2 next year.
Absolutely.
Learn more about these what the heck moments. So, again, for the Size Up, this has been Pip. Thank you all for listening. Big shout out to my friends at the Original Mustache Club. Shout out to Hannah and I's friend Isaac Frazier at the Into the Job conference. Make sure you check that out. I think it's in August this year. I think I could be. I'm not sure, but he has a great social media presence, so check him out. We got to get him on the show, actually. Probably should get him as a guest on the show at some point. But also our sponsors, Frontline Optics, and everybody for listening. So thanks again. This has been Pip for the Size Up by National Fire Radio.
National Fire Radio.